This is Dr. Brown, and this is a podcast takeover. I will be chatting with y'all a little bit about pet anxiety today. So, if y'all are ready, let's begin. First starts, let's chat about what types of anxiety there are for our pets. First and foremost, there's usually three main categories here. One of those is the fear-related category, the other is separation, and the last is age-related anxiety. Of those three, if you have a pet that, say, is afraid of fireworks, that would fall under the fear-related category. If you have a pet that maybe freaks out or messes things up at home when you leave, definitely in the separation area. And age-related can be essentially where your pet starts getting anxious, or maybe paces, or starts looking a little disoriented throughout different parts of the day. A lot of times at night, as it's winding down or those are usually your older animals, of course. Go figure, age-related. Signs of anxiety. So some signs are going to vary between dogs and cats, which are our primary pets at home, yeah. The dogs, you can see excessive yawning, drooling, panting. You can see pacing in the house, vocalization, so like whining a lot, barking. You can see uncharacteristic aggression. So if you have a normally kind of really sweet pup and then all of a sudden your pup snaps or things, those can also be signs of anxiety, as well as destroying things, whether that be the couch or a blanket, you name it. Also sometimes going potty in places not ideal. That one is also quite common with your cat as well. Other ways, though, that cats differ from dogs is that they tend to keep a lot of that anxiety held inside for a very long time. And so when it does manifest, it looks slightly different. And so they might just become more reclusive and stay tucked away in what they've deemed a safe spot of the home and not really interact. But they will do like the pups and urinate sometimes in places not ideal. And every once in a blue moon, they'll just also kind of distance themselves from their owners as well when it comes to just interaction. So say you have a cat that normally loves being in your lap, or meows for your loving, and then all of a sudden it stops that and it's not really seeking you out anymore. You might want to worry about if your cat has anxiety as well. Tips for helping alleviate anxiety. Well, this one's got multiple factors. So let's start with, training. There are experienced trainers out there that have really fine-tuned how to help you and your pet navigate pet anxiety. And so you could just hire a trainer that would be able to work on identifying your pet's specific anxiety traits and how to best cope with those. Other things that you can do, especially for those pups who seem to be afraid of loud noises or get stressed when other people are around, is you can actually work with them on their other types of training that you've already employed, which can include sit, stay, and just like that regularity, that normalcy of those kind of trainings will help reduce that anxiety in that moment for your pup. Another really, really sound one, and this is cats and dogs alike, it just looks a little different, and actually people as well, is exercise. The way exercise works is that it kind of just is a stress reliever for all of us. And so you kind of burn out some of that energy, it causes your body to have a point in time where it wants to relax, and so it kind of favors the animals when they exercise as well, just to kind of relieve their stresses. And then the last one is medications. We have different anxiety options, stress options for medicating, and a lot of times that is most ideal to be done after having visited with your vet, so your vet can assess which medications are ideal for your patient. But every once in a blue moon, there's some things you can do, say that you can possibly purchase at a pet store that could help with that, and we can chat about those a little bit later. Which brings us to the next bit of our conversation about crate training. And so this is primarily about dogs, yes. And how that looks is that usually we have a kennel or a crate at home that we've kind of already established just with our normal training that is our pup's area when need be. And crate training can become a very, very good tool for anxiety because of the fact that they're already comfortable with it. It's already their area, and so it becomes like a safe space whenever they're having episodes of anxiety. And so you can utilize that already in place measure to help them realize that if they ever need it, they can go there. What that looks like is making sure that, say, you're having people over and your pup gets stressed out around other people, ensuring that kennel's open so that they can choose to either be in it for its safe space or be out of it if they're feeling a little more confident to interact this time. How you can do crate training if you haven't necessarily established that yet, well, it's a mouthful, but long story short, there's a few quality tricks and tips that I can give, and one of those looks like positive reinforcement. And so essentially what that is if your pup doesn't necessarily know what it is yet, putting food in the kennel or the crate means that you can teach them that good things come from being in there. Say that they go in on their own, and then you see that you could reinforce it with, say, oh my gosh, good job, and acknowledge them there, or with a treat as well. And then even other things like if they're out and about, just keeping that available for them for other options also works as well.
Dr. Brown, does the age play a factor in terms of crate training? Like, if a dog is elderly, it's just too late to teach them?
So long story short, it can have a little bit of a role, but training is training. And so a lot of times it functions off of an association with what's happening. And so if your old dog is food motivated, you can train your old dog with food to also enjoy and love the crate as well. And age wasn't necessarily as important a factor that time because your dog was able to be taught about it with food. But they do say that generally speaking, there's a lot of different methods to help make that association for any age pet.
Well, getting back to specifically to anxiety, do you think that pets experience it the same way as humans do?
That's a very good question.
It's kind of deep.
It is kind of deep. Let's see. Generalized answer, pets absolutely experience anxiety. And we have all the knowledge in the world that results in changes in their body. Just like there are changes in our body when we have anxiety. So increased heart rate, increased respiratory rate. With that being said, yeah, they do see some changes. I think the thing that varies for them is not necessarily how anxiety affects their bodies, but how they show their anxiety. So we don't necessarily go chomping on couches and things, but we
ripping blinds apart.
Not necessarily. Well, hopefully not. But yes, I would say they do as well experience anxiety.
What would you say are the three? I know you touched on the causes of pet anxiety, but what do you think are like maybe the top three that a lot of people experience?
Yeah.
Just as a kind of a signal of like, you're not a bad dog, you're not a bad cat, and looking at it differently.
Yeah. Top three, for sure, I'd put separation up there at probably number one, especially dogs, but also cats for sure. I would also say loud noises across the board, dogs and cats as well, would be a high top as well, especially when it comes to 4th of July or any holiday with fireworks, loud moving vehicles and things. And then I think the other one would have to be maybe fear-related anxiety due to changes, whether that be new animals in the house or having moved. I think that is major with both dogs and cats.
And going back to work after COVID.
Going back to, yes, that was probably a major change for a lot of them, and we have seen some of those effects.
Well, how do we tell the difference between, this dog or cat needs a little bit of training, maybe some professional training, versus okay, I see you have anxiety. Like, how do we tell the difference if the behavior could possibly be the same?
Yeah, and that's a tough one because a lot of times they have kind of like a consistency where behavior and anxiety go hand in hand, or they're kind of like coexisting in the same thing, and there's two separate issues. So, for starts, there's some major signs that we kind of talked about earlier. If you're seeing those repetitively, like more repeatedly, and it kind of is triggered by one more able to be focal kind of event, whether that's like the fireworks or whether that is every time I leave home, then we may start wanting to think about anxiety. If, say, it's kind of more wide range, you could worry about it being behavioral with respect to, if, say, for example, aggression. Say that my dog is nervous around new people, and every time I bring the new people in the home is the only time that my dog might growl a little bit. That's likely anxiety. But say that your dog growls at everything quite regularly. That's a bit more behavioral. The best way to, for sure, kind of figure that out, though, would be to reach out to your vet, have your vet assess, and then if need be, your vet can refer to, say, a behaviorist or someone of that nature as well.
Well, giving a pet attention while they're in the middle of expressing this distress, does that make it worse? It's kind of like when you're upset and someone's like, calm down, don't be upset. And you're like, what?
Good. Yeah, so there are lots of opinions on this one. Let's start there. But what we've seen is that there's an association made with, okay, I'm panicking, I'm freaking out, I go to my person and my person pets me. And a lot of times that can really influence worsening of those responses. And so it's actually recommended a lot of times not to pet your pet in that, not to pet your fur baby in those instances, because then it doesn't reinforce, okay, do this panic every time or come to me every time that you're worried, and you help them grow out of it rather than grow worse into it.
That is really eye-opening, because I never thought of that, because I've got one dog that just, she was adopted with anxiety, and I'm always trying to calm her down. I'm like, this is not working, because she's still like, you can tell she's still afraid, and it's like, okay, I'm not helping at all. I'm reinforcing her, it's okay to be freaked out.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm doing?
Come freak out with me. It's fine. Every time you need to, come freak out with me. Yeah,
so maybe just giving her that space, that safe space,
exactly.
like I do, and leaving the room.
Yeah. So, and that's really, really good for separation anxiety. Doing that in like micro doses and then extending it over a period of time is huge with separation anxiety. And that might look like starting out just going in a separate room for, say, 15 minutes, letting them, worry a little bit, and then reinforcing, okay, you worried, you got through it, and I'm back. And then extending that time to like maybe 30 minutes and, say, 2 weeks or however long it takes for your specific pet. And then just continuing that up to the point where, say, maybe you can go home, or not go home, like go say to work for something every day, and they no longer freak out. So.
Is that a good trial for, say, you adopted a pet and they have the separation anxiety? Yes, you should always check with your vet, but in doing the little doses of being gone, walking out of the house for 15 minutes and coming back, as opposed to being gone for 12 hours and then coming back and going, I don't understand why you just destroyed my house.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even say you never got the chance to test it first, right? But you left for 12 hours for work, and then you come back and you're like, what happened? If you can identify that, then that is likely a strong chance that it is separation anxiety, and then you can work with it after that point and say, okay, if I keep doing this over time, because with anxiety, it is really, truly a time thing, then after a certain point, if your pet starts improving, then you kind of help to manage your pet's anxiety, separation anxiety to be exact. So.
Some folks suggest just giving them Benadryl to calm down. Is that a really sticky Band-Aid?
Yes. Okay. Let's start with Benadryl, which is a brand name for a generic drug known as diphenhydramine. This is traditionally a drug that's categorized as an antihistamine. Essentially what that means is that it's great for allergies. It's great for like insect bites. It's great for helping with cold symptoms, but it's not necessarily specifically for anxiety. What it does is it makes things drowsy, and so a lot of times people think, oh, okay, then it worked for my pet's anxiety, but it didn't really. It is exactly as you said.
It just knocked them out.
It's a Band-Aid. Yeah, it made them sleepy, and then everything seemed fine, but that was not necessarily the case. So with that being said, it's not our first recommendation by any means. However, there are other drugs that, medications that could be recommended as an alternative that would actually be more catering towards anxiety.
What about more of a holistic? Are there any things out there that maybe some pet owners could try? And then clearing it with your veterinarian, of course, but just some either all natural stuff or AKA distractions.
Yeah. So there is a spray. It's called Feel Away, and this Feel Away is pretty much a mimicry of the all natural pheromones that cats release that are calming to other cats. It's based in the science behind a mother cat's pheromones for her kittens. And so how that works is essentially it is all natural, right? With respect to the fact that there's no true medical property change, and instead it's just altering the environment by soothing it in a normal way that most cats can do with each other if they so calm each other. And so you can purchase that in a lot of different pet stores. I think different places can carry that. That would be a good one. There's also, the Thunder Shirt is a product as well. And what that one does is essentially it has a soothing, calming pressure effect. Localize it really the level of the torso of dogs. And so it gives them a security feeling. And so that's kind of a more natural, normal thing that you can do rather than, say, behavior modification with medications. And then also, distraction is fantastic. So, dog puzzles with treats hidden in them can gear them away, focusing on what they're getting anxious about and more on working and things of that nature. A toy with, say, a frozen peanut butter in the middle or something of that nature can also really help distract.
I can imagine that it would be stressful for pet owners the first time they have people come over and the dog is freaking out. What are your recommendation on one, helping the human not be so terrified they never come back over and see you ever again? And at the same time, some initial things that you can communicate to your dog with body language or your voice, right out the gate, when that first happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes back to just other training tips and tricks. So say that you like having dinners, but the stress of having people at dinner for your pup is not ideal. Have a plan in place. So that may look like every time that we have dinners, my pup will go into another room or have access to another room so that in the event that my pup is stressed, that is a safe place. Or you can start catering a specific schedule into your training routine or your routine with your pet, period. And so every time at dinner, say your pup goes in its crate and has its meal, then when those people come over, your pup will already be inclined and kind of already in routine of already being in the crate, and that's already a safe space and it's already comfortable there, and that can mitigate a lot of those interactions as well. Other things you can do are training things like teaching your pup to just put nose to palm. And that's a redirection for those stressful moments. And there's just a lot of other tips so.
Say we're working towards the crate as a safe place. In order to keep the dog safe from hurting themselves, one person was saying their dog freaks out and breaks the kennel when they're crated. So they're actually hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Any recommendations for that?
That one's tough. Goodness gracious. Let's see. First starts, there's a question of the type of crate you have. Yes. So essentially you could alter that, as well as you could consider how your crate is lined, what types of things there are that could be injuring your pet. You can also work on just like routine crate training, like the in and the out, the in and the out.
So it sounds like, I mean, obviously this person has not introduced them properly, or
Correct,
like
yeah.
you had mentioned the association.
Yes.
Okay.
And that might look like, say, doing it in a setting that doesn't also associate with that anxious response. So when it's just you and your pup and you're calm and you're both happy in your home, and just some crate association then before the incident happens. That way they don't always associate it with that and feel like they have to break out.
Is it true, and I heard this, and I don't know if this is true or not, that some dogs have anxiety because they were, say for example, they were a stray and they were bred too young? Is that a mother's tale? Puppy's tale?
There are theories associated with it. So it kind of goes back to how long the mother is able to stay with her young. And so a lot of times what can happen is when that breaks sooner rather than later, and that pup is forced into, say, a world that it hasn't kind of learned its skills from its mother from, then essentially there becomes a major anxiety to that component. And so they walk this world a bit more stressed and anxious than, say, a pup that may have been able to be taught a few things from mom or staying with mom longer. But it's so multifactorial. It's very, very hard just to pin it on solely that. But
so it could be environmental, genetic. Is there a breed that one breed over another, or is it just like us? We are just like.
There are breeds that we sometimes say are more anxious than others.
Chihuahua? Who said that?
That may be one of them, yes, absolutely. And that is also just a difference in opinion across the board for most too. But there are some breeds that seem to have that as a common trend.
Okay, we're coming near the end. We're already at 12:56.
Okay.
Time's flying when you're anxious.
Yeah.
We're talking about anxiety.
That was good.
No, this is all really, really good stuff. You want to share some big news we have that we've just been sharing out?
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, we have opened our wellness clinic. It is offering affordable preventative care here at the Houston SPCA. We are open Thursday through Sunday, and that's 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So you guys should come and see us. If you need to know any more about it, you can visit us at HoustonSPCA.org.
Yay, that was awesome. Thanks for the takeover. We hope you'll come back.
She's like,